Welcome to Data Security Over Coffee. That's DSOC to those in the know.
Where the only thing more dangerous than a zero-day exploit is Chad from accounting clicking on every single email attachment.
From password post-its hidden under keyboards
to that one guy who keeps using password 123 despite our 47 security memos. We're here to talk about the threats you never knew you should be terrified of.
I'm Dr. Joe Harford.
And I'm Angie. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Singer Keating.
Bringing you the latest in cybersecurity nightmares and risk management drama.
Because somewhere out there, a hacker's trying to get into your company's data.
And Karen from HR just clicked on another free iPhone pop-up. This is Data Security Over Coffee, DSOC, where every episode is a penetration test you didn't ask for. Wow, look at that. Brian, I have to tell you that watching your face in the green room was great because I've never really paid attention to before. And I realized it's much different with far less hair than in that intro video. A little bit of sad news today for those, only 155 people. It's probably because Angie is not here. Angie is not with us today. She is doing her daughterly duty. Her mom lives in Adams County, which is in the southern part of Pennsylvania, in a little place called Littlestown, PA. And unfortunately, about 5 or 6 days ago, a transfer station caught fire, and they are currently without electricity. So definitely thoughts and prayers go out to all of them, especially those senior citizens that perhaps are living on their own without air conditioning, because this is not the week in Pennsylvania not to have air conditioning, because it is super hot. So cyber and AI and all that kind of nonsense we'll get to, but first I want to welcome back a true friend, Brian. Not only is he a good guy, but he's done something that very few people will do. He decided to enter the Weirdo Club and be an entrepreneur, which means that he has risked his entire fortune and his family's well-being to start a business. And his wife is probably sitting behind that brick wall going, Brian, you better not fail, because if you do, trust me, having done it 25 years ago, celebrating our 25th anniversary, I know the woes that Brian has gone through. So, Brian, welcome back.
Thank
you.
I
want to hear, how did we get to Igloo? Why the name Igloo? And what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Igloo Insurance is an independent insurance agency. I am my coworkers are me, myself, and I, and it's what we refer to as a scratch agency, right? So we're starting organically from zero. We didn't buy a book, we didn't buy an agency, we didn't transfer clients over. So it's very fun. So we're headquartered in Middletown, Pennsylvania, halfway between Harrisburg and Lancaster. So I live down in Lancaster, go up 283, and hang my shingle up there. And we offer business, life, home, and auto to individuals and families, and really focus on transparent risk advice. One of the things I realized over the last 10 years or so in the insurance industry is there's a lot of mystery, a lot of kind of assuming, you got a guy and he's doing a good job, and particularly with cyber insurance. I mean, 99% of insurance agents just don't have the knowledge, lingo, or specialty education to serve as a cyber risk advisor. Sure, they might place insurance policies and be a general risk advisor. So I saw kind of a gap in the market. Another thing we're heavily focused on is education and podcasts and YouTube, and not only SEO, but GEO, right? So how do you get your business to show up in ChatGPT and other AI tools recommendations, really? Because a lot of people are now going there instead of Google,
right?
Which is kind of interesting. So that's often a weakness of most insurance carriers and agencies. Like they, have operated off word of mouth. Like, oh yeah, I know my cousin or my brother-in-law is in the insurance industry and knows a guy, like they're golfing friends or whatever.
Right.
So we're kind of flipping the script, building strengths where majority of folks have weaknesses.
Great. One of the comments, believe it or not, it sounds like your audio is floating in and out. So I don't know if it's
Oh,
if there's a lag somewhere or if it's a microphone issue, but there are sometimes when you're clear as a bell, and other times you sound like you're inside a toilet roll. So I just wanted to let you know that,
oh
you
no.
know, and perhaps it's me because I'm older than you are.
It's everybody's ears. It's not me. So I just unplugged the microphone, and we'll see if that changed
You
things.
sound spectacular. You sound like you're on data security over coffee. I mean, this is fantastic.
There you go. I just unplugged the USB drive.
There you go.
There you are.
Technology. So I think one of the things that I want to focus in on real quickly is when people talk about I don't know how to become a business owner, or I've been an adjunct faculty member before, and trying to get students to understand the entrepreneurial mindset, et cetera. And one of the things that I think that you pointed to, which is critical for anybody that's even considering it, is you identified a gap, and that is an innovative jump that you made in being able to take your background, because your background isn't just as your t-shirt, which is very cool, insurance nerd would say. And I'm sure, I feel very confident that if you reach out to Brian at Igloo Insurance with your proper t-shirt size, he would be happy to send you a t-shirt. I just feel confident that he's that kind of guy. But with your background, because you're not just an insurance guy, you have a background in technology. You have a background in that entire sphere and that domain. And so I think that positions you at a place to really take a look at something and say, the insurance industry is missing something, and this is what it's missing. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take advantage of that. And in entrepreneurship, we exploit opportunities. The word exploit is not bad. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to build a world famous business, and maybe I'm going to come work for you someday, and it's going to be fantastic. But why now? Why did you decide to launch Igloo now?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned kind of a gap in the market, right? I mean, I studied entrepreneurship as well at University of Delaware, and they always talk about product market fit and solving problems. Like a lot of, I think, cybersecurity and IT firms go the model of, hey, if we build it, they'll come. But really, you want to go interview 50 to 100 people about the thing you're thinking about building and say, hey, what kind of problems do you have around this? Would you be willing to spend money on solving that issue? How much would you be willing to spend? And what common solutions have you tried already? So yeah, I did do a small stint at an MSSP. And that was one of the things our founders got wrong. He spent millions of dollars building out really a cybersecurity software product that unfortunately Microsoft really started offering away for free, bundled into Microsoft 365. And that just turned into a hole in his pocket, laid off software engineers, upset landlords, and would have been more beneficial to just spend $100 on it and then go talk to 100 people. So in terms of Igloo now, it kind of came down to where I am in my personal life. Like I'd always kind of had hints of, man, it'd be awesome to be a small business owner. My father and father-in-law were small business owners their whole life, and kind of saw what that was like. I mean, sure, they worked a lot. They were gone from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and maybe went in the office for a couple hours on a Saturday. But they got to send all their kids to private school and college, and live a good life. So that was probably my first exposure to it, and learning more in school. But as I started advising clients in the insurance industry, is like, well, at the end of the day, they're really buying me, Brian, as their advisor and agent. They're not necessarily buying the carrier or the agency or the underwriter, right? So it's kind of a sell yourself, and then you can kind of sell the business type of thing.
Right.
But I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I'm not in kind of drop the kids off at sports practice mode, or going on expensive vacations. So from a timing perspective or personal perspective, it just made sense. Like, okay, hey, we're not doing much the next couple of years anyway. Third kid's not on the way.
Congratulations!
So, thank you. Yeah,
that's exciting, man. So why the name Igloo? Why Igloo?
Igloo. most simple reason is I like alliteration, right? Sally sold seashells by the seashore. It's got the I in the eye. It's very memorable. But then the symbolism behind it, right? Everybody knows what an igloo is. It's a house made out of snow. Well, the Inuit tribes in North America relied on those for shelter, warmth, security. It symbolized resourcefulness, right? Because they were able to build with materials they had readily available. But they were also temporary, right? They didn't live in them, 365 days out of the year. They traveled and built them and then left and then maybe built another one. So there's a lot of parallels to how we operate in the insurance industry. I mean, you buy a car and you insure it, and that's temporary. That car's going to be gone one day. You, from a financial comfort or warmth perspective, right? You fall back on a insurance policy in a tough time, whether that's, a blizzard, if you're an Inuit tribe member, or you're a small business owner that just got hacked.
Right.
So it's also just a fun Arctic theme, right? Like maybe we'll have a big billboard in Harrisburg that says, "Chill out, you're covered, Igloo Insurance." Maybe we'll have a polar bear, kind of like Winnie the Pooh mixed with the Coca-Cola bear with the sunglasses. He could be our mascot. There's a million things. Maybe I'll send you a cooler. I'll send you a branded cooler, Joe.
Oh, you know what?
That's a cool gift.
We could get some swag going back and forth, man. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'll get a life jacket if you're a honey badger.
Oh my gosh. So again, let me say welcome to the crazy world of entrepreneurship. I'm proud of you for making the jump. And obviously I know that it wasn't taken lightly. And although I've never met her, I want to commend your wife for being supportive and caring of her crazy husband for doing such a thing. So congratulations to her as well.
She was more on board than I was. Even though I'm doing
get out of the house, man. She's not kidding. She's just like going for a while.
She just said, it's time, and I think it's a good time. And if you're going to do it, you might as well do it now. So cool. It's kind of like it's kind of like the tree analogy. What do they say? Like the best time to plant a tree is today, and the second best time is today, and the first best time was 20 years ago or something.
Yeah. Very cool. I was at a conference not too long ago, and it was, as you can imagine, just jam-packed with AI this and AI that, and oh my gosh, and some guy was dressed up as a Terminator. Just insanity, right? Just insanity. And so for somebody who has a technology background, and now you have been in the insurance industry for a while, when you think about it from your own experience, and people start talking about cyber maturity and so on, when you sit down and you're talking with clients or you're talking with peers, what does cyber maturity sound like or look like to you as a practitioner that has a technology background, front facing is insurance, and you're also a business owner? So what does cyber maturity look like to you?
Yeah, I'll kind of chop that up a little bit. I mean, from cyber maturity, like it's not some destination you get to and you're like, oh, we're here, right? Like cyber maturity is a constant process. I mean, so is risk management. I mean, risk management at its core is you identify a risk, you analyze the risk, you try to control the risk, through mitigation efforts. Then you try to finance the risk, insurance, and then you administer the whole risk management program, and you continually go forever. The core of that is you have to have somebody responsible, right? So if you're a large organization, maybe you have a chief information officer, a chief risk officer, a chief technology officer, something like that. If you're small to medium-sized businesses, what we're seeing is first thing they do is hire an MSP. And what's difficult about the outsourced, I'll say, information technology industry is there's no standard licensing or offerings or requirements, right? Like if you set up somebody's Microsoft environment, like you could be an MSP. So the first thing they're kind of doing is the bare bones, right? You have MFA, you have, maybe some phishing security awareness training, and they put up some firewalls. So if you're like me, a one-person business, like we have all those things through an MSP. I'm not doing that stuff myself, although I could probably figure it out. As you get larger, right, and especially if you're a regulated industry like finance or healthcare, government, you start kind of getting away from MSPs and MSSPs or virtual CISOs, chief information security officers. So they're maturing in what they need and what they're getting. So from an insurance perspective, and again, this might be contractually driven from a client, or might be industry specific, or it just might be your own risk tolerance, because we all have different risk tolerances. Me and you, Joe, started our own business, right? We probably have higher risk tolerances than most people.
Right, we do.
Yeah, but my underwriter carrier friends are all, very risk averse. They're conservative and moderate, and they invest in bonds and whatever. Where am I going with this? So,
and you're younger than me. You should not be train of thought.
It's the caffeine. I usually half calf guy, but it's a special day today, so I got it. Full espresso. But from an insurance perspective, right? Like you might just start out with $1 million cyber insurance policy, just as a COA type of thing, or CYA, or you're a financial planner, or you're working with the state of Pennsylvania, and boom, you need $5 million of coverage. So cyber maturity, to put a bow on it, I mean, it's people, processes, and technologies growing with you to become more mature and more secure as your business becomes more mature and needs to be more secure because it's more valuable.
So you kind of touched on this. In Pennsylvania, according to some .gov agency, I have no idea, we have approximately 1 million SMBs in Pennsylvania, small and medium-sized businesses.
Wow.
Big number, right?
Yes.
And obviously they have relationships with larger entities, those enterprise type organizations, as well as they have many relationships with state government, et cetera, and so forth, right? So there's an interconnected web. It's called the economy. Okay. So when you think about SMBs, what are they going to do, and how do they go about, number one, first and foremost, even beginning to understand what does cyber maturity even look like for them? And then how do they get on this journey and start to move down the path? Like, what do they do?
I think the first step is they need to figure out, what they know, what they don't know, right? Figure out what they don't know and find someone who knows about it. So that's, could be experts in cybersecurity or cyber insurance like you and I, or a lot of the times, whatever their kind of trusted advisor circle is. I mean, I would always encourage them to ask questions. It's even a banker, an attorney, or a CPA. I mean, again, interconnected web. Hey, I know somebody, that can help you with cyber maturity or IT or cyber insurance or cybersecurity. In reality, I think a lot of those million SMBs don't do much until they're forced to, because they need to win the big contract, or because their key supplier, key customer wants them to have something or do something. For instance, I was working, with a technology startup. The parent company's in Germany, the U.S. subsidiaries here, and they have a full-blown insurance program in Germany. Of course, it's kind of a mature company, but it's a little, less than $100,000 revenue company here in the U.S. But they're trying to sign on 2 big new customers. Well, then you need to get, all your ducks in a row here in the U.S. in terms of insurance and security. So it's a software company. Another thing I'll mention in that interconnected web, we had a really unfortunate, but I think long time coming incident in the insurance industry just in the last few weeks here. There's a sophisticated ransomware group. They're calling it Scattered Spider. I don't really know why, but it sounds cool. My 4-year-old would love that. They were apparently responsible for a bunch of big breaches a year or so ago in the UK, kind of retailers and grocery stores. and they switched their tactics to target the U.S. insurance industry. So a couple carriers, Aflac, Erie, Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a rumor or two that maybe the Hartford and Ivans, which Ivans is the technology vendor that downloads all of the insurance policies into insurance agency management systems.
Wow.
All got impacted by this scattered spider ransomware group, cybercrime group, really. And their tactics is social engineering. We talk about this all the time, but they're impersonating like help desk IT folks to get employees, duped and to try to get their credentials, upgraded essentially. And then they try to hit ransomware. In these carriers' perspectives, they're Fortune 500 companies that they're very mature from a cybersecurity perspective, and their internal, SOC and cybersecurity folks caught it immediately and voluntarily took their systems offline to prevent ransomware. This has been 17 days with Erie, and employees just got access back yesterday. And I think it started June 9th, of course, like a Friday or Saturday that it started.
Mm-hmm.
But you go back to that interconnected web, right? Like hundreds of insurance agencies just in Pennsylvania alone could not submit new business to these carrier partners of theirs.
Sure.
And some of those agencies, that was 80% of their business.
Mm-hmm.
So they were sitting duck. And then their policyholders couldn't pay their bill. But then there was kind of this after effect where these policyholders, my neighbor Susan, who has her home and auto, was like, hey, I can't pay my bill. Like my son just got in a car accident. Like I don't want the policy to cancel, blah, blah, blah. And, we're having to drive around with clipboards and pick up, paper claims submissions like it's, 1980 again.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, I think that I'd seen this story about Erie Insurance, and I think that there's a couple things there. Number one, anybody can be a Monday morning quarterback. I don't know. There's a lot of value in that. I think there is a lot of value when we start talking about the root cause and we start saying, okay, social engineering is becoming even better than ever before. Okay, then if we all accept the fact, without being mean, that our weakest link are our employees, the frontline people who click on keyboards, then we had better do something to help them be more aware and better. Mm-hmm. I've said this to organizations that we work with. I've said this in presentations. That's when people normally roll their eyes. I've had a couple people walk out of the room, which is fine because I have really thick skin. But we have to start to create a culture of positivity and reward rather than just simply discipline and the big old bat. You take a look at, I can't even quantify at this point in time the financial impact on Erie Insurance and reputational damage. I got to believe it's more than $10,000. Okay. Mm-hmm. With that said, I think organizations have to figure out a way to reward their organization for not being breached, for not having a security incident. Now, what that looks like, how do you pay for it, et cetera, that's like big brain stuff. But I think we got to take a look at that. And I think it goes hand in hand with this whole idea of artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. We have to figure out a way to help our clients, number one, not be afraid of it, but get their own internal staff to embrace it in a way that mitigates risk because there is value. I'm wondering from your perspective, when you look at artificial intelligence today and what you've been exposed to, good, bad, or indifferent, what do you think are, the number one or number two risks that organizations are facing when it comes to artificial intelligence today?
I think number one from AI perspective is a no-brainer is these, hallucinations or kind of copyright or intellectual property infringement where you're using these tools and it's, stealing other people's stuff and you don't really know, right? Another one is, financial loss potentially. Maybe you're an AI vendor, maybe you're using an AI tool. I mean, just like how you're using, Microsoft or whatever. I mean, every business is virtually relying on technology to run their business, and AI is just another technology in some sense. It's kind of on steroids. Going back to, high school psychology, Pavlov's dogs, like positive reinforcement works. Negative reinforcement can work, but we all know positive reinforcement works a little bit better. So what I've seen a lot of, I'll say more West Coast tech companies do is they'll actually tie end of the year bonuses or, whatever to that employee population phishing score. Like, hey, if we know you're the clicker, the 1% out of 99% of the employee population, like, come bonus time, sorry, you're not eligible, or say it gets cut by 50%.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah, or you get an extra, $1,000 if you were not, if you were, had a 0.01% or whatever. But AI risk is kind of interesting. So. There are a couple things I wanted to mention from the insurance world that have changed since the last time we're on the show. One is there are some specialist AI coverage insurances coming out. So we're still not seeing cyber insurance policies say, hey, no AI. They're not really excluding AI yet. We have seen Berkeley Insurance Company add an AI exclusion for things like directors and officers insurance, fiduciary liability, errors and omissions, which is kind of interesting. So think you're on a board and you have some decision to make and you're using AI to help you make that decision. And then, your shareholders are pissed off at you and sue you.
Right.
And potentially that claim could get denied. Right.
Okay.
Another one is Munich Re and Armelia, which is a Lloyd's of London carrier. They're both explicitly coming out with products saying, hey, this is for AI risks. So they're saying, discrimination, intellectual property infringement, hallucinations, regulatory fines, like that's the risk or the AI liability they'll cover. What else? Ill-informed decisions, business interruption, or loss of revenue. So again, I mean, just like now I talked to a couple brokers this morning. We'll use the Erie example again. These insurance agencies all across the country apparently haven't submitted contingent business interruption cyber insurance claims saying, hey, I had a key supplier that had an incident. Because of that, I lost revenue. Theoretically, I think they could, but we haven't gotten the claims data in the industry yet to see if that's been happening. But at the same time, they're kind of key supplier could have been, say, an AI technology company that allowed them to be super efficient with quoting or binding coverage or something.
Right.
So it's all kind of boils down to, in my opinion, kind of social engineering. It's how these bad guys are getting in majority of the time, and the supply chain risk of the SMBs are all connected to the middle and large size companies, and they're easier to crack.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, I mean, back in the day, everybody remembers the Target breach.
HVAC company, right?
It was a third-party vendor, right? And they weren't malicious. They were just not, they're not a cyber company, right?
Right.
The one thing that you're saying to me that I would, and I'm not trying to create a shameless plug for you, although I will.
Go for it.
I think either right before or right after the July 4th holiday, if you are a business owner or a business executive, you better reach out to your insurance broker and say, yo, I need you to take me to lunch and talk to me about your expertise in AI in insurance. That would seem like a worthwhile conversation to have because it's moving so quickly. And I've got to imagine that there's very few resources and true subject matter experts out there like yourself that somebody could really not know what the heck is going on. And not because their insurance broker doesn't care. They're just not aware,
Yeah, and it comes down to kind of just being a cyber risk advisor in general. Like, you should be asking your clients, like, what technology do you rely on to run your business efficiently? And specifically now, which are AI tools? Like, I've talked to construction companies who are using AI to respond to RFPs, where they'll prompt it the instructions of the request for proposal. Then they'll give it their proposal, and then they'll say, here's our number one and number two competitor who are probably also bidding on this, and identify areas in our proposal that we may have missed responding to the RFP, and then identify our strengths over our competitors so we can bring that to light. If you couldn't access that AI tool to respond to that RFP, what's the risk to the opportunity cost, right?
Sure.
Going back to pen and paper, I don't know, it takes 3 days instead of 1 day, or, the effectiveness of us winning this goes from 60% to 20% or something like that. So I think those are the really weird kind of AI liabilities where it's like, can we even insure that? But less kind of new business oriented, but from like a compliance and quality assurance perspective, I've seen like accounting firms use AI to kind of double check audits,
right,
all the way down to the cent.
Mm-hmm.
And did I miss a penny between, last year's tax return, this year's tax return, or whatever? What's the risk there? And, I kind of see us having to do a much better job from the insurance perspective, like teasing that out. Like, is that a professional E&O exposure, or is that a technology exposure?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're using technology in your professional services, like, where's the line between being just a professional services firm and a tech firm? Because everybody's kind of getting more and more techie.
Well, you mentioned something else about risk. Mm-hmm. for small, medium-sized businesses. I think this is for anybody. I was on a group call yesterday, and one of our partners, DevSource, had brought up the idea of the fact that people are moving from Google as their choice of search to chat or any other form of AI.
100%.
And so that has a dramatic impact on the searchability and the ease of which your website is going to appear. Your company is going to appear to someone. That's, from a marketing perspective, that's a big deal. And so, the conversation we were having yesterday, as I said to the team at DevSource, what if anything should we as business owners on this call be doing? And they said, I don't have any concrete answers for you at this point in time because it is so new, but I can tell you that as we start to amp this up and learn more, people are going to have to figure that out because it is a major shift in the way in which the search landscape works. That, to me, is a risk for businesses, because what happens when somebody's looking for a managed security service provider in Pennsylvania and Reclamere is nowhere to be found? Or right. Someone looking for a subject matter expert in technology insurance and Igloo doesn't even appear. That's a big deal. That's a risk for businesses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I the way I've handled that in my business in the last month is I'm spending a lot of time, money, and effort with a very industry specialized digital marketing firm.
Cool.
That all they do is, GEO, SEO, web developments, keyword, all of that for independent insurance agencies. And I'm
right.
hoping that I can put that risk and knowledge and worry on
somebody else. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it's your fault if I don't show up in ChatGPT.
Hopefully they have insurance, damn it.
Yeah.
So I guess the last thing I'm curious to find out from you is, so it doesn't matter. It's a construction company. It's an accounting firm. It's an insurance broker. Mm-hmm. How are you suggesting to people that you work with, how are they supposed to balance the risk of AI and being ultra secure? Like, what should they be doing to create that balance? Because they have to, right? But what should they do?
Yeah. I think step one is like take stock. Like what do I have from a technology perspective or not? And do I really need it? and is it working for me? And
So would you agree that some kind of an assessment of the environment?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Assess what you have and how AI is either embedded or not embedded in that. I think maybe doing some also external, this could be a few phone calls, or maybe there's industry specific data you could find, but like, how are my peers and competitors using AI in their business to be way more efficient and stronger and faster and whatever?
Okay. So industry best practices, find out whether or not industry best practices exist.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. From there, I think, again, you try to control the risk and finance the risk. So do I have, a Reclamere, an MSP, or an IT guy that's keeping these things secure and online? And have I considered, I don't know, especially AI insurance policy, which, are new and probably aren't for small businesses, but a cyber insurance policy may be for you, to at least shield your balance sheet, right, if something goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe every 6 to 12 months, you kind of circle back through that thought exercise of, what do I have? Is it secure? How is it secure? What are my peers and competitors doing? How am I de-risking this through, my people, processes, technology, and insurance, and then reevaluate. From a cyber insurance perspective, if that's a big spend, which, most businesses, it's not a big spend, to be honest. And we can talk about why that is, but, evaluate it every year. And then your entire insurance program, we say every 3 years or so.
Cool. So number one, congratulations again.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the fact that you decided to come back and hang out. I'm sorry that Angie wasn't here so we could terrorize her together. If there's obviously anything we can ever do to help you, all you have to do is reach out and ask.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you and your willingness to share. I think that when we start talking about that network of people, that interconnectivity, what really makes it valuable is when people are willing to share their expertise with looking for nothing in return other than just simply saying, listen, we know that this whole thing called technology, whatever, is always going to be a challenge. It's never going to go away. After AI, there's something else. No idea. It's something.
Yeah.
And as long as people are willing to have open, honest, and upfront conversations, I think a lot of really great stuff can come out of it. So, again, Brian, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Hopefully going to click a button and something cool is going to happen. I have no idea. But we'll definitely chat once we wrap this thing up.
All right. Press the big red button.
Here I go.